Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Brian Wishart. I'm a pediatric rehab doc or physiatrist here at Mass General for Children and part of the pediatric parent stroke board that has been helping to put on these number of educational webinars and series since, I believe, last October or so. And with most of them making their way onto online, and we're trying to get more and more up as they've been recorded and available for you guys to be watching at a later time. I think it's gone really well. It's been amazing how much it's grown and how far we've been reaching. Here we have somebody from Transylvania, Romania, which is amazing to me. And it's been fantastic. I think it's really been a lot of information. It's been a way to provide a lot of our specialists directly to the community across the way and open it up for questions, along with a short period for them to kind of present a very focused amount of information directly to you guys in a more digestible way in these short sessions. So today we have one of our fantastic occupational therapists here at Mass General that works in the outpatient setting. Christina Cossa will be talking today about one of the better researched aspects of therapy for our children that have had strokes in the Constraint-Induced Movement Therapy, or CIMT, and then also on kind of incorporating some of that bimanual therapy into that as well. And we have some colleagues from Virginia, is that correct? Sorry. Mary Trucks and Dory Wallace that were part of the initial work for the I Acquire studies, which is one of the biggest kind of therapy research studies that's ongoing right now in multi-centers that we're helping to recruit for, as well as a number of other sites. So with that, I think I'll hand it over. Mara, did you, who was giving the parent talk?
Leslie, are you ready, Leslie? So we always start these with a parent perspective. So Leslie Carvalho is a parent on the parent advisory board who's going to share a story about her family's journey with constraint-induced movement therapy.
Hi, everyone. I'm mom to Roman, now 6.5, almost 7 years old. At birth, he suffered a left MCA stroke and had additional 2 different types of clots on the outside of his brain, and was having seizures also at that time, apneic seizures, so wasn't breathing through the seizures. He spent 10 days in the NICU and came home and has been truly thriving. He is like a hero story for sure. He's definitely inspiration, to so many. We were seen at Mass General Outpatient Occupational Therapy. We worked with Suzanne Curley for many years, who's a hand specialist, and really kind of shared the information about the constraint program and really encouraged me to think about it and to really start that program for Roman. He had a left MCA stroke, like I said, so his right side is definitely weaker. He participated in the constraint program. At the time, there weren't the studies that he participated in, so we embarked on it on our own. But I think that it's important to think about, there are 2 words that come to mind, I think, when you choose to help your child in this way in the constraint therapy program. It's perseverance and redirection. So those 2 words are super important, because I remember in particular meeting another family at one of the developmental clinics that we went to, and they couldn't believe how successful that Roman was with constraint therapy. And the mom had said to me, "It's just so hard. They're so upset." And I said, "I know." And like, that's where like a parent's perseverance really comes into play, and the redirection of at the same time. So if there was a struggle or a hard day, or, a sort of tantrum around wearing any kind of the braces that we wore, and he gradually changed the bracing that he was wearing through age, just because of needing more restraint and sort of finding his way out of the ones that he was wearing. And it's just important to constantly redirect their behavior, whether it's through organic play, being outdoors, just really kind of focusing them on new and interesting activities that will allow them to push through wearing the constraint therapy, whichever one you're wearing at the time. But it's just so important that as a parent, there's the commitment to the program, because Roman's now 6.5 years old and he's not wearing any of the constraint therapy now because he's a first grader in school, and it's more important for him to focus on his writing and to have his hand free to do that. Not to say that we won't go back to another program when he's a little bit older and can really sort of share with me what he's thinking and feeling around the challenges with his right hand. But we started as early as 10 months and just started with a simple, soft thumb support on his right hand to keep his thumb open, and then eventually graduated to different types of braces. And as he was, 2 to 3 years old, he wore a hard cast that was creatively designed by Victor at MGH, who he's amazing. And, we made it out to be like a real event going to get a new one, about choosing a color. And, these are superhero powers. And really it was how I packaged the brace to him, and the cast and the restraint and the commitment. It took him probably almost 3 years to point his finger on his right hand. And I truly believe it was 3 years of dedication and hard work in wearing the constraint that allowed him to be able to do that. And he does have like beautiful movement with his hand, and it definitely does open. And I definitely can attest that to the constraint therapy. And I'm not dismissing how, of course, hard it is as a parent and as a child that is working through the different sort of feelings and emotions around wearing constraint therapy. But it is for sure given us the best results. Like I said, he's 6.5 years old now, and he's just starting to participate in sports and just starting to be able to verbalize sort of what the challenges are. So baseball season is starting today, actually. And he knows he doesn't like the feeling of wearing the glove, but he definitely has the language now to help support those feelings and to talk about how it's hard for him. But I truly believe that for all of the therapy that we participated in has given him the opportunity to participate in these sports and to have better use of his helper hand, as we call it. And I think it's really truly critical in helping them sort of thrive through the recovery and the journey. And I definitely go back to those 2 words of perseverance and redirection. And it's so much of that. And it was, for sure a solid about 5 years participating. And I think it just opens it up to a lifetime of good results. And as I had mentioned, we definitely are open to circling back to participating again, as Roman has a better understanding of his abilities and needs and language around sort of communicating how he's feeling. But it's been an amazing experience. And truly, he is for sure has just a wonderful disposition. And I think that's obviously in part helpful in navigating through all of the different feelings and emotions around wearing constraint. But we had wonderful support and therapy at Mass General. We were going about twice a week outpatient, and then he received services in school. So we focused more on services at school. So it was less disruptive for him to be taken out of school. And he still participates in occupational therapy at school. And it's, of course, needed. And it's just been a wonderful experience. And I truly can't encourage families enough to consider it and to do your research. There are a lot of great articles about constraint therapy, and I can truly be, a real life story of success, and it's commitment. And I think when things are hard, I tell my son we work harder. So it's just how we run our lives. And I think it's been a tremendous experience. So I do truly encourage for all families to consider it.
All right, well, thank you so much for that, Leslie. If it's all right, we'll move on to the next part. What works for you, Mara and Brian? I'm Christina. I'm one of the occupational therapists at the outpatient department in Mass General. And I just want to give you a chance to just talk about constraint and hopefully answer some questions about what it could look like for you at home and how you might get that started. Bear with me with just 1 second. Okay, good. Everyone can see? Good, 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 good. All right, so I love what Leslie said about the perseverance and the redirection, because we're going to go into a little bit about that. So our plan today is to, just kind of go over what is CIMT, kind of review quickly what are the principles of CIMT. I also think it's really important just to get a quick general review of what general hand progression looks like. I think that's really helpful to have that kind of background as you're getting something started for your child, of knowing what's the hierarchy of events and what should happen first. And then what kind of going over what CIMT at home could look like for you, as well as then moving into how to apply that to some bilateral integration activities at home, and then quickly discuss what the iAcquire study is about and how it is available for you. Okay, so when we think about constraint-induced movement therapy, originally it began as just a rehab model for adults who have experienced a stroke, which resulted in hemiplegia. The main goal is to provide intensive opportunities through functionally and activity-based interventions in order to overcome a potential non-use. We're trying to make things functional. We're trying to increase opportunities, repetition, so that it can address each individual goal. When we think about what's the theory behind CIMT, it's that original neuroplasticity, that the central nervous system is always available for relearning and restructuring. Within the components of CIMT, we're going to do that through the use of the constraint, which we'll talk about a few different, what that might look like. The constraint, what I like to think of, it provides an opportunity to quiet that active side of the body and give it a chance to kind of turn off and let that involved side kind of kick into high gear and stimulate it in a new way that it might not be used to. With that, we're hoping to get a lot of repetitions, as well as, and through that, we're going to do that through adapting the activity so it kind of meets the child at their level. And we're going to do that through shaping all of our interventions. So when thinking about the constraint, there's a variety of different ways of what that might look like for your child. You're going to kind of meet with your clinician and meet with your providers and decide what's the best way I want to get this started. It could be something as simple as we're just initially going to put the non-involved hand in the child's pocket. We're going to maybe do some manual assist with the clinician or the caregiver. Also looking at even just positioning. Sometimes I think that's a part that gets a little lost. If we're going to weight bear on that, that dominant side, then that frees up more movement for the involved side to move. That could be from some side sitting, that could be lying down on your side, and kind of a natural constraint in that way. The big component, I think, when I think of as an OT for intervention is what is that adaptive task practice? And for me, that is meeting your child at their level. That is saying, what is their goal? What do they want to accomplish within this intervention and this activity? And then I might be breaking it down into smaller chunks because I want to support them to feel successful. I want them to feel efficient, and I want to encourage them to have a sense of accomplishment. Our goal is to look for them to start to do some a little bit more voluntary movements. So they're going to want to do this activity again and again, which then leads to the perseverance and that repetition. That's a big part. So in OT world, we kind of call that shaping, right? So that's modifying the activity so that it is kind of slowly grading it so it could achieve that end goal. It can be done through a variety of different ways. Things that I'm going to point out to you in the next slide is that as adults and caregivers, we're already doing some of these tasks. We're already giving some tactile cues to maybe get the child started. We're already changing how we're presenting the toy to them. Maybe we're holding it up high right in front of them. Maybe we've turned it so it's horizontal to them, which makes it a little bit easier for them to reach out into space and to grasp it. Maybe we're changing the size of the toy, just in a way to help them feel like they're involved and so that they're feeling successful. And then as adults and caregivers, we are going to celebrate those small moments when they did it, when they picked up that toy and we were able to keep going, and we got, again, then led to more repetitions. So what we're going to see here, and this is just kind of to get home the point that like this shaping technique is something that as caregivers we're already doing. This is just a little guy, 18 months, playing with his grandma. And I just want you to just take note of what grandma does. And she doesn't even realize she's doing it, and which then encourages the child to want to keep going.
Okay, Josie. 1, 2.
Okay, so she's counting to keep them going.
3.
She moves it closer.
4.
She sees it's about to fall down.
Up. 4.
She hands it to him.
5. And boom. Okay, we start again. Go ahead. 1.
Right? So you see he has
2.
this moment where he says, wait, how do I get this started again? And before she loses
2.
his attention, she sets him up. He looked at
3.
her. He said, wait a second, Grandma, what should I do next? And she encourages him to do it
boom.
some more.
You try again.
Again, just by
1,
the placement of the object
2.
changes how the child's engaged,
3.
and then also changes, look at all these
Do it
extra
again.
repetitions the little guy is getting.
4.
And then you'll see he becomes very proud of himself.
5. Just stand up. 6. Yay! We got 6. And there they go.
Okay, so that's just really to just kind of set the scene that that is something that's already innate for us. To what can we do to get these kids to keep going? Now that we've kind of covered what constraint is and what the concepts behind that, I just want to kind of take a quick minute to go over, remind ourselves what are those first initial steps of what children do with their hands. So what's the first thing that kids do as exploration? They put their hands in their mouth, right? And once they've figured out how to pick something up, they bring it to their mouth to learn about it. So I don't want those initial steps and those initial milestones to kind of get lost depending on, where your child is at. Okay. So just quickly looking, I don't want you to focus too much on the months and the age. I'm more just thinking of the hierarchy of what happens with hand and upper extremity development. Initially, they're not making too much contact with the toy. This is your child who's lying on their back and they're reaching for that toy with the arc of toys, and they're batting at it, and they realize if they hit it, it makes a noise and it jingles. And then next time they try and do it, they might try and reach with an open hand and try and grasp onto it. Then moving on to a little bit more, we're moving from that ulnar side of the hand to the radial, getting a little bit more involvement in the thumb. And then at the end, we're looking for a little bit more whole hand opening and control, so we can pick up objects of various sizes and then with a little bit more precision. Also then thinking not only after we've picked up a toy, then what do we do with it now that it's in our hand, okay? So initially that grasp is just reflexive. We've picked it up and then we just naturally kind of drop it when we're done with it. Next steps, integrating it using two hands. We might be pulling the toy out of the other hand to transfer. Then goes into dropping it into a container. I've picked it up. I want to drop it to a specific target. Then those next steps I'm gonna drop something smaller into a smaller target, those initial release patterns to maybe start doing some puzzles or any of those shape sorters. Also considering what does it look like for that dexterity, that in-hand manipulation. This is your first, like you're taking the little puff that's in your hand and you're trying to get it to the tips of your fingers so that you can self-feed. Then at some point you're moving on towards turning the object so that you can either turn it to see the underside, you're turning it in that wrist to bring it into your mouth a little bit closer to learn about it. And then towards the end, we're looking at that complex rotation, which I just think of that manipulation in our fingers to be able to write something and then turn our pencil over to erase it. So thinking about now that we've kind of understand the principles of CIMT, thinking about what's that progression of hand development, how can we then start to integrate it into our home environment? So here's little Roman with his cast that he seems very proud of. So if I'm setting the stage for my CIMT at home, the first thing what I want to consider is what does that child want to accomplish in the moment? What's going to motivate them and what's going to help sustain their attention. Right here we have a little girl, clearly her motivation is to get those blueberries, to get those puffs, to get the Cheerios. And she is clearly very invested in it. What she's doing right now is working on that in-hand manipulation, bringing that small piece of food from the palm of her hand into the tips of her fingers so that she can self-feed. Looks like she's leaning into it pretty well. So, you know, a way that I might shape this activity to make it meet her at her level, or start to help her support her in giving a little bit more success. I might offer the blueberry at a higher level. I might start her off with a bigger cookie that might be a little bit easier for her to hold on to and take a bite from. And we're looking at the effort that her curiosity will hopefully outweigh any discomfort as she wears the cast during this meal, but she seems pretty content here. Next steps. Now that we're thinking about something else, what else does the child want to accomplish? Here, Roman, he's got his puzzle. He's taken it out and maybe now he's working on that distal mobility to turn the puzzle piece and place it in. We've already seen that there's a couple other pieces already there. So we've narrowed it down. He's just got to put this one rectangle into this one opening and looking to have some success there. You see, he's just got a hard splint on that left hand as his constraint. Here we also have Mia. What she's doing is she's just taking the puzzle pieces out. So we're working, the goal here is just the precision grasp. And I want you to look at what the therapist does to help Mia keep going. And then I also want you to look at what Mia does when she gets that puzzle piece in her hand. We're thinking about shaping and grading the activity.
Farmer doing? Is he taking a little nap? He must have been working hard. He's tired. Let me bring it a little closer. Okay, now try.
Okay, so she starts to hold the board steady for her, right? She brings it in a little bit closer, and then Mia goes back to try again.
There you go. Good job, Mia. And the doggies. Oh, do you know who's in the barn? Lift up. There you go. Who's in the barn? Who do you think's up there? Who do you think's up there?
Okay.
Oh, it's a kitty cat.
So you can see Mia is very motivated. She's very interested. She's scanning for what piece she's going to get next. And what I noticed that she does, she gets it. She's using that pincher grasp to pick up And then she's looking for a little bit more sensory feedback, and she's using her whole hand to get that puzzle piece out.
Farmer do.
Okay. The other thing we're considering when we're setting up our CIMT is home is how is the child getting additional feedback? Just like Mia in that last video, is how are they getting sensory feedback if they've found that task? How is she changing so that it can meet the target? How is she slowing down her actions to meet the demands of the activity? So here we have a great toy that's set up right in front of her. She's got her constraint on, it's a softer cast, and we're working again, a little bit more precision is dropping the ball in the.
On Fridays I stay down in preschool. Oh, till 2:30. And which hole is going to be empty this time? Which one's going to have nothing in it?
Have a good one. Oh, I won't see you. Have a nice weekend.
The green one has nothing in it this time.
Yeah, I leave at 1:30.
We just turn this a little bit. There you go. Okay.
So you see she had to take her hand, match it over the hole, find a hole that's empty, match it over the hole, push the ball in. Now what she's given is a tool, and she's working she's got a lot of effort. The therapist now uses her hand to guide her movements, and now she sees success, and she goes back and she tries again.
What is this? There you go. We have to do big taps.
The other part to sometimes not get lost when we're setting up our CIMT at home is to not forget about that sensory experience. What is the child feeling in that involved hand? How often are they going back to touch that sensory stimuli? Even just considering the weight of the object, is it heavy, is it light, and how does that change our grasp pattern and what we do with the toys, or do with what you'll see Mia do here. So you see it initially, she's just at that exploration.
I'll tell you.
A little bit of
I'd
that
like to
raking,
jump in
trying to
too
get
in a minute.
that whole hand involved. She's getting the sensation of the rocks under her legs. It matches what she's feeling in her hands. I'm looking at maybe that stick or that branch is a little light. So maybe we're not getting enough sensory feedback that there's something in my hands. I'm going to go back for more. Right, now she's got a rock in her hand. She picked it up. She's not sure of what just happened.
Good job.
And look what mom does. She models for her to keep her going. And then she says, hey, wait a minute, I want to do that again. And then she said, what just happened? I initially just bring it up to my mouth to say, hey, what did I just pick up? The other concept when we're kind of setting up at home that I think is really important is just the overall postural control and that setup. We want, if we're doing all of these fine motor movements, we want to make sure our kids are well supported in their trunk so that when we've got that proximal stability, it leads to a little bit more distal mobility, which then allows them to use a tool with a little bit more control, a little bit more success in their accuracy, which is then going to lead to more repetitions. So here we have her, she's well supported in her high chair. The tray is at a great level for her elbows so she can rest there. And then let's see what she does. So you see her shoulder is nice and steady, and which allows her to isolate all those movements at her elbow. She also has a very motivating activity to keep her going. She's a little hungry. Thinking of her sitting, her posture, her setup here, then allows her to sustain grasp on that spoon for a few more turns. And I'm sure that with this, she got to the bottom of that yogurt container. So thinking after we've had that course of CIMT, now we're like, okay, now what can we do with that hand? It's just developed this whole new set of skills. and it is ready for the next challenge. So what does it look like to integrate that involved hand for some bilateral activities? When I think of bilateral integration, I kind of think of three actions. I think of the symmetrical movements, which are the hands, two hands are doing the same thing together. Alternating movements, so we're switching from left to right, and then kind of that main one where we've got that dominant hand as its working hand and our supporting hand for stabilization. So here we have this little guy. What are those first symmetrical bilateral integration movements? We're bringing our hands together at midline, right? We've got our fingers together. Then we're looking to hold a toy with two hands. Then we're moving on to clapping our hands together, all the way up to catching a ball with two hands. His hands are usually doing the exact same thing, coordinated together. The other part that I think of is just alternating movements when we're shifting from the left side of the body to the right side of the body. Those initial ones are crawling, even thinking about putting your arms through the sleeves of a shirt. You do your right arm and then you do your left arm, and then you pull it over and you shift it over the rest of your trunk. We're thinking climbing a ladder. We're thinking what it looks like to ride your bike, right? When you're turning to one direction, one hand is fully extended, one hand is flexed. Here we have Mia again, and we'll just watch her. She doesn't have the cast on, and we're just looking to see what our hands are doing, how the therapist prompts her. And we're going to see a good mix of just some symmetrical movement as well as some alternating movements. Right, so two hands are doing the same thing. They're kind of mirroring each other. She's getting a lot of support here being at a vertical surface, right? So you see here, we're getting some nice range of motion as she reaches to the top of that shaving cream. Here we go left and then right.
Watch this, two hands.
Right, then encouraging. And now we're just making a mess, but you see both hands are working together. They're both getting the same set of feedback.
All the way up high. All the way up high.
Then thinking about what it looks like to use that involved hand as a support, right? A big thing is holding that paper down while we're coloring. Leslie mentioned that Roman's working on writing, so we're integrating that hand, hold down our paper so we can focus on writing our letters, focusing on drawing our pictures for school-related activities. We're thinking about this little girl, she's got opened up those fingers so she can stabilize that bubble container. And so she's very motivated to sustain that grasp and keep going so she can get to the bubble wand and keep moving. So when I think of CIMT, what would be the benefits? And the goal is that we're looking to move towards function and moving to ways that we can incorporate it into our everyday routines. It allows for more increased opportunities for that child to learn how to motor plan and create ideas and execute movements with that involved hand. And it's meant towards, as we just saw, is meant towards integrating the hands to work together as partners. And so at the end, after some hard work, some perseverance, some meeting at your child at their level, we see success.
Yay! Oh.
And I love what he just did just there. He transferred the block into his right hand so that he could pick up the other block. And I think that's such a great
Look at you!
use. And he clearly, again, is very proud of his work. So, and I'll kind of turn towards from Mary and Dory if they want to jump in about any thoughts about the iAcquire study. This is a study that's going on right now. just to kind of recap, what they're looking at is the 2 different dosages of the I-Acquire model of the intervention, where participants will be randomly assigned to one of 3 groups, either the high dose, which is 6 hours a day, 5 days a week for 4 weeks, or the medium dose, which is 3 hours a day for 5 days a week for 4 weeks, or the control group, which then, and others can speak to this a little bit more about how that works, is that they can then be re-enrolled or re-randomized to be part of group 1 or group 2. Thinking since we have people from all over, here's just the locations of where the I-Acquire study is taking enrollments. So hopefully there are ones close to you, and we can help support you reaching out to any ones that are a little bit closer to your area. And so what I can do if we're right here is I can just play these just so you get a good little sense of what that might look like. Mary, you can see?
No, you might need to share the browser window
Okay.
where that's
Yep.
playing.
Okay, sorry about that. 1 second. Okay, good. Okay, thank you.
This is a video in which you will see a 9-month-old with a cast on her stronger arm and hand. This child did not reach or use her weaker arm or hand prior to starting therapy. This clip is of the end of week 1 and gives you an example of how our therapy teaches movement, all while in the context of play.
So you see the toys presented right in front of the little girl. The therapist has modeled.
Bye-bye, elephant. Bye-bye, lion.
There you go.
Try it. You can do it. Good. Push. You got it. Who's in here?
And she brings it a little closer.
Yeah, it's okay. You're able to push outside. Right.
Choose a tactile cue to get her to go back.
It's a monkey. Hi, monkey. Nice. Oh.
She's got another more repetitions.
Come on. Oh, so close. Push hard. Use those muscles. Get it. Get it. Push him then. What's he doing?
Okay. Does a little hand over hand to regain her attention. And then ends on a successful note.
In this video example, the therapist is using a familiar toy with a child between the ages of 15 and 17 months. The child views this process used in I-Acquire treatment as a natural way of playing while successfully using her weaker arm and hand to reach and pick up toys. Oh, nom, 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 nom. Should we feed him a cracker? Let's feed him a cracker. Ah, that's so sweet. You fed Cookie Monster a cracker. In this video example, the therapist is using a familiar toy with a child between the ages of 15 and 17 months. Pizza? The child views this process used in I-Acquire treatment as a natural way of playing while successfully using her weaker arm and hand to reach and pick up toys. Can you give him a bite over here? What? Should we give him some ice cream? Can you give? Whoa! So let's turn. We turn him over. Yummy! Silly Cookie Monster.
And then she looks like
Should we
she
give
wants
him
to
some
do it
chicken?
again, right? She's
Give
motivated.
him some chicken.
The therapist keeping it novel by giving her
Yummy.
different toys.
Yum, 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 yum. Yum, 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 yum. Yum, 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 yum. What do you think? What else should we? Should we give him a strawberry?
She changes the placement of where the toy is.
Yummy. Ooh, and should we give him a watermelon? Mmm. Mmm. No, 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 no. Yummy. And how about an orange?
So in general, just in talking to families who have gone through the study, just, you know, at least in our site, the overall feedback has been the initial start of the intensive therapy was challenging, just to kind of have that cast available and on for a longer period of time, something that they're not used to. But eventually that they're, once the routine was established, they were very comfortable with it, and they were so pleased that they did it, and that at the end of it, they wanted to do more. And so I think that was kind of the point of today, was just taking, if you've done an intensive, then here are some ways to incorporate some CIMT further at home, as well as, or if you're just looking to get it started, here's some places, a little bit of a foundation to go from there. And that's all I have, Maura.
Thanks so much, Christina. Claudia, are you still on?
I am.
So this program is entirely volunteer run and sponsorship helps. So I'm going to let Claudia make a statement now, and then we'll move to questions after that.
Thank you. And thank you for, I feel like I've just learned so much. There's so many different avenues as a parent or caregiver of a child who's had strokes. I have a 20-year-old son who has had 6 strokes and is now truly a stroke thriver. And I can honestly say, 10 years ago, when he had his first stroke, there were so little resources that I knew of, and felt incredibly lonely and lost. And through the years and getting connected with Mass General was incredibly pivotal in Alex's life and in our life. And these workshops feel incredibly hopeful and life-changing. And it feels like a support group and a mission for all of us who want nothing more than our children to survive and thrive. It's become a possibility, and to see it in real time is incredibly moving. So it is all volunteer. Any donation of any amount to continue the sustainability of this program, it would be so appreciated. You know, trying to see one of the upsides of us all going on Zoom is that this program can now branch out worldwide. It's not just at Mass General. And everyone here, from you know, the doctors to OT to therapists to volunteers, have one goal, and that's for our children. So please consider making a donation of any size. And thank you so very much.
Thanks. And I just put in the chat a link if you're able to donate.